I wanted to start with talking about you and kind of how you got your start as an educator. I know now you're in a superintendent role, but you've
Mhm.
obviously you didn't start out there. So I wanted to ask, how did your journey as an educator begin?
Well, I started off as a teacher, but I was late in my career to doing that. I decided when I got married, I was just going to have our kids first. And then at some point, I decided when my child actually went to kindergarten and walking down the hallways of the school, taking her to class, yeah, I was totally inspired to be an educator. So I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a teacher. And so that's kind of how I got into that. So I was late into my career, and I knew that if I went to be a teacher, I wanted to only work in schools that had poverty. I grew up in poverty myself. And so I was have always worked in a Title I school. And so I knew that I needed to work with students that were like me. And but over the years of teaching, I had a principal that saw something more in me that inspired me. Hey, Stephanie, what about this? And I thought after I had went to school to be a teacher, I thought I'm never going back. And what did I do? Of course, I was, very fortunate to have somebody to see that leadership ability in me very early in my teaching career. And I decided, okay, well, maybe I can do this. Maybe, I could raise my kids at the same time as going back to school to be a principal. And that's exactly what I did. I did night classes and stuff, not too far from our school, and did that and been a principal for years. And I am so blessed to have had such a great experience of being a principal. And I still think it's the best job in the world. And if I could do it all over again, I absolutely would. And at some point, again, someone stepped into my life. I became was the principal here in Hawkins, and my superintendent encouraged me to go back and to be a superintendent as well and get that. And I did. Did not like it at all. Did not like the superintendent seat. And so I have stepped back and now I'm assistant superintendent, which means I pretty much do everything the superintendent doesn't want to do, but I'll do so much things that I love, in this part, the curriculum, the instruction, the systems, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I am, but I'm really close to retirement. And then I'm going out to help other schools put in systems and win time and improve student outcomes. So that's kind of where I am. That's my journey.
That is such a cool story. That was the moment that you wanted to become an educator was
Yeah.
when your kids came to school. Yeah. And it sounds like you've had mentors yourself, and now that's kind of what you're doing. So you're carrying
Mhm.
that on.
Yeah, I'm just so blessed to have people that came at the right time to say those words to me to inspire me. So that's, I'll never forget that.
Yeah,
So,
that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing.
mhm.
And now at your school, could you tell us a little bit about it's Hawkins, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
what makes it special to you?
Well, I could go on and on about Hawkins, but Hawkins is a very small country town. It has such a big heart. The people here are so genuinely kind and loving. And I think what makes us special is that we're all committed. We're so committed to doing what's right for our kids. And sometimes that means in this conversation that we're having today is rethinking traditional models. Like we're not stuck with one way. This is the only way it's going to be done or whatever. So that's what's so good about Hawkins, being a small community, being a small school, is that we know all of our students by name. We know their stories. We know their background, and we're also just not afraid to try something new. You know, we're the school that people come watch because we're going to do it different, and that's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. And I think what you said about your commitment, because you're obviously flexible, but when everyone has that common goal, then it doesn't really matter what program you're doing, or you're willing to do anything if it's to help students succeed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So you started your role at this school, and I know now you're doing wind time there, but what happened that made you see the need to make some changes to do that?
So the story of Wind Time started before I got to Hawkins because I was in another district and we did Wind Time, but we didn't even call it Wind Time then. We called it Flex Time because we were being very flexible with our schedule. And it wasn't until I got to Hawkins that I realized what I was doing. But at this school, I thought, that I was at, that I knew that what we were doing wasn't working. One size does not fit all. I also knew that I needed to get our students some intervention time. But what was happening is that I tried, okay, what if they just stayed after school? Well, that wasn't working. We have, a Title I school. We have kids that require a bus to get them home. And it just wasn't effective. Teachers were tired, students were tired. I didn't have the kids there that I needed to have there. So I thought, okay, it's got to be during the school day. Okay, so then I started working on that. Then I noticed our interventionists were just going, knocking on the door. Hey, I need this student. I need this student. And what was actually happening was the students were being pulled from tier one. And I was actually creating larger gaps in these students because I was pulling them out of key instructional time. They were missing reading and math because of the system that I created. And not only that is when you knocked on that door and the door opens, everybody looks that way and they say, hey, I need Stephanie out of class. Well, what does that do? That embarrasses that student. They were embarrassed. And then when they also came back to class, they were behind because that teacher continued to teach during that class period. And so the very thought that I was serving our kids was actually hurting our kids. So I thought there's got to be a better way. So what I did, it was just created that dedicated, protected time during our school day that we know now as wind time, because we may have had pockets of excellence and pockets of success, but we really weren't being strategic. We the needle wasn't moving in our academics. We were just holding our pace, our steadiness, but we really weren't excelling. So that's how wind time came and evolved over time. And I really like the way it looks now in my school, but I also know it looks different in other schools because of the dynamics of the school. How big your school is, how small your school is, how big your staff is, your student population, your resources, your funding. All of those things play into the dynamics of how your win time actually looks. And so I I don't know. That's just how it all started and how it looks now. So I think we've came through a big journey over the last few, 10 years of working on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a classic story that happens in schools that are trying to fill that need, because the day is already so busy, so they try to fit that in before or after school, but it leaves a lot of students out, and often the ones that need it the
Yeah.
most. Yeah.
Mhm.
So for those who might be a little unfamiliar with the term win time, how would you define that?
So win time stands for what I need, and it is a period or periods of the day that is built into a master schedule. So it is a dedicated class period, and it's protected, and it's designed to um, intervene with students or enrich with students. It's not just about the intervention. I think that's what a lot of people try to focus on is like, let's just work on our lowest performing kids. Well, your high kids need enrichment too. So why not do them both at the same time? For me, our win time is two back-to-back 30-minute times so that we can intervene on both reading and math for students who need both. And it not necessarily for me, I may be a really high reader, but I may be poor in math or low performing in math. So I could get both of those. I could get enrichment in my reading and intervention in my math, or vice versa. I know that another model of this is that if we see students who are multiple years below grade level, I can intervene extensively by giving them double block of reading time. So I could get them some phonics time. I can get them guided reading time, with a small group of teachers and really focus on exactly what they need. And that's just the beauty of what win time looks like. I love it. I could talk about win time all day long.
I can tell it's something you get really excited about. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. And that sounds like that too would fit really well, since you're in Texas with the HB 1416 for the kids that might need the
Yeah.
accelerated instruction. You have that right built in.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
that's
for
exactly how we do that. We
mhm.
we give them their hours during our school day and we focus on exactly what they need based off of the data. For us in Texas, it's all based around our state assessment, which is called STAR. And for those grade levels that give a STAR test, and for the ones that don't, we use, district created assessments or beginning, middle, and end of year assessments that we could get that data to see where they need intervention or enrichment in.
Yeah, it's a really smart system
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, even if you didn't have the HB 1416, there would still be students needing that. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, so it's a very smart way to do it. So I'm imagining when this was kind of being implemented that trying to find the time maybe wasn't super easy. Maybe there were some challenges. So were there any challenges with the implementation process or the things that you had to tweak along the way, and how were you able to overcome those?
I think the biggest challenge might be at the very beginning of this is for the staff to see the vision, that, you could get up and you can tell them how it looks, but until they actually see it in place, it might be kind of hard. So a challenge could be their mindset. A challenge could also be the culture that you have. If you don't have a culture of sharing students or also a shared belief that all students can learn, that could also be a challenge. I know the biggest one that I face when I go work with other schools is some teachers don't want to share their kids with another teacher. They're responsible for their data, so they don't want a student out of their room and somebody else responsible for them. And so, but that's a culture that you have to build. And if everybody has a curriculum and the resources and the expectations of what win time is going to be like, then there should not be any of that hesitation to share your students with somebody else. Everybody should be working for the same vision and the same expectations. So that's the biggest challenge. But what some of the things you could do is just make sure that all of that is outlined. We created a guidebook, a handbook, a PowerPoint. We modeled, when I came to Hawkins, I had already that created. So all I had to do is get up and explain it. And I had visuals. And so we also then, after it started, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, let's regroup. What did you have the most trouble with today? Let's focus on fixing those issues and then adjust those and then start the next day with a mindset that that's been taken care of. And so I think too often too, you go to a school and they'll give it a try and it was chaos. and then they're like, I just can't do this, and they give up on it. Whereas just tweak the missing piece. So one of the things I do is I go out to schools and we build this win time system for them. So all they have to do is present this plan back to their staff, and it runs so well. I mean, because we think of everything. Okay, what happens? What does win time look like when you go into the classroom? What are the students doing? What resources am I using? When are we switching? All of those things are worked out before they even start. So we I like to be proactive. So when we talk about these challenges, it's like I've already worked through those, so I kind of know how it's going to work out.
And anticipating the challenges.
Right?
Yeah, and that's really nice to have those resources in place for schools because sometimes the idea is really good, um, but it's getting from point A to point B.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
execution, is that what you call it? Like
Yes.
you can have a great plan, but if you can't execute it, yeah, it's just plan, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you also have a book that you co-authored, and I was just wondering what sparked the idea to write a book about wind time.
Well, I think I just wanted to document our journey and our success, and the leadership behind it all, and that it's not a program. It's not just a program, that it's actually a culture shift in your school, that all students can learn, everybody can have win time, everything's personalized. And it's just a way to share the stories, what missteps I took, what wins we had, and one of the things I want to do is just make sure our story was heard and that my community was empowered by all the great things that they were doing. And I know that if I could put that down in words, that maybe I could bring some success to other schools around the world. And I just hope that maybe just a little piece of that is in some school district right now and they're being successful for it, and we're building better schools for our kids.
Like we mentioned, many schools do like the idea or understand the idea about wind time. It's very logical, but again, they struggle with that execution. So is that what prompted you to create a software tool? And
Yeah.
could you walk us through that process?
Absolutely. So that is exactly why the Win Time software was developed, is that, myself included, but other schools would say, I love this idea, but how do we schedule it? How do we track it? How do we put students in groups? And I realized that, we were using spreadsheets and all that, and they have its time, it has its place, it's good for a short amount of time. But when you're getting more and more complicated with things, you want a system that can really track it and to log the hours that are happening and could really just see, just, I don't know, just put in the information that is actually happening with the students, because the spreadsheet's not capable of doing that. I wanted something a little bit more, but I just knew that we were spending so much time on the spreadsheets. But I did. We already use enriching students at our middle school, high school, and very successful there. And I know the power of the software and what it was doing over there, and I knew that this could be beneficial too for an elementary school. So that's kind of how that all evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. Spreadsheets are great. It's probably better than nothing. If
Yeah,
you're trying to manage this and you don't have the funds and you need some way to keep track, Google Sheets can do a lot, but they can't they also can't do a lot. And if
yeah,
you're
that's
trying,
right.
if tracking data is important to you, you really need to have
Hmm.
some system to take care of that. And looking around your software tool, I've loved the ability to add assessments for each win
Mhm.
activity. That's super helpful. So right after the activity, they can enter that. And then even there's a resource hub. So
Yep,
the ability for teachers to have the resources that they want to use during win time and then message and share those with other teachers is very powerful. And just
absolutely.
to have it in one place. So you're not going
Mhm.
from sheets to messages to,
Yes. I
whatever
mean,
else.
I just envision this hub,
Hmm.
for win time, the resources, the communication, everything is right there for anybody that logs in.
Speaking of systems, and we touched on this a little bit, but if there's anything you want to add, why do you think it's so important that schools have some kind of systems in place for win time?
Well, I always say this, that if it's not a system, then it's just a suggestion. And we really need a structure. We need to be intentional about working with our students. And wind time could easily fall apart if you don't have a good system in place. It could actually become a study hall, a free period of the day, things like that. But if you use it and use it well and it's designed well, then you're actually going to close gaps with our students. And that's exactly what we want. But it could also have the ability, if you're using the enrichment side of it too, to advance students in their studies. And so that's just the power of it. Just one block of your day built and focused around giving, personalized learning for our students. It's just so powerful.
Yeah, it's having, like you said, the intention and then
Mhm.
the ways of making it, the structure and the accountability pieces as well. Yeah, because I think that that is a big frustration with a lot of schools who start win time or a flex period or even advisory. You can see that with advisory, sometimes it just kind of becomes like a hangout for
Mhm.
kids. And maybe they need a break, but there's no intention there. And if that's happening every day, then
That's right.
no one's getting the benefit. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So if we kind of shift towards talking about some benefits, I know you've been doing this at Hawkins for a while now. So what are the benefits that you've seen from win time?
Well, of course, we've seen gaps close. When I came to Hawkins in 2017, they were an F-rated campus. In 2019, we received the Blue Ribbon Award, the National Blue Ribbon. And so that's a testament of the hard work that they put in. A lot of it, I know, was just better systems for everything, monitoring everything, really having an aligned curriculum, but also the support of win time is really, looking at that. But that's just my school, but everywhere I go, they're seeing success. From California, a school in California reached out to me, a superintendent. I went out there and worked with them, and they sent me an email that said that they were on an honor roll list for their school in California for the first time ever. I have a school in the border of Texas, which, the borders into Mexico, and they were an A-rated school for the very first time in the school's history, and wanted to tell me about the work that they had been doing with wind time and all the systems that they put in place. So, I mean, I could just go on and on about how wonderful and the benefits that I'm seeing of wind time. And that's globally, like looking at your school as a whole. But if you could just really narrow down to the focus of every individual student that is actually benefiting from win time, it is huge. Like it's just so huge to see students growing every day in reading and math or whatever subject that they're focusing on during win time.
It sounds extremely fulfilling.
It does.
Yeah. Do you have you seen any expression from students? Do they appreciate this time? I know it's not always fun for them to do more work, but are they seeing the benefits to some extent?
Yeah, I think so. I think that students know that they're not stuck, that they could go get help, especially at our middle school, high school level, where they're able to request their teachers for win time, that they can actually know that, hey, I'm struggling in geometry right now. I come see you during win time, and that teacher could block them into their win time class. So that is amazing too. I also know that even at an elementary school, what our students, when they get rewarded for meeting their goals during one time, they get to go to the office, they get to ring a bell, and they get a book token for a book vending machine, all that kind of stuff. So they get excited about it and the success that they're bringing. So they're feeling fulfilled as well.
So there's a little reward system that's
Yeah,
teaching them that this is a good thing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a nice
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
So my last question that I try to ask everyone that comes on is sort of their one takeaway. So if there's one piece of advice that you would want to share with a school who's thinking about win time, maybe they're in the planning stages, maybe they've just heard about it and it sounds like a good idea. Is there one piece of advice that you would give them?
I think it's to know your why. Like why do you even want a win time in your school? What's the reason behind it? Also, the big why behind it is that your student outcomes are going to improve. One size is not going to fit all. Going back to my years of being a student in a school, had I had win time, I probably wouldn't have struggled so much. Um, so I know I want them to just to make sure that they know their why so that they can communicate that why out to their staff if they're an administrator. And also, if they need help with that, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to help them get win time started in their school. And so I can, just come and visit with them. I can talk to them. I can do virtual meetings, all that kind of stuff. But I know win time has the ability to change so much in their school that if they would just give it a try, I know that they would be so excited about it.